DreAllDay.com.
What's going on, everybody? Dre Baldwin with DreAllDay.com, the daily game. I'll tell y'all a story. I was sitting out at a Starbucks like a week ago working, and I was sitting there for a couple hours, and the table that I was sitting at, there was another table in front of me. The way that I was positioned, there's another table right a few feet away from me, but nobody was sitting there because it was like dirty. You know, you go to Starbucks, the table's dirty, somebody spilled something, looked like some sugar, some brown sugar, some kind of crystals or whatever was on the table spilled, and nobody had cleaned it up. So I'm sitting at my table and I'm watching as I'm sitting there, because the table was right in between me and the front door of the restaurant, or the front door of the Starbucks. So people would come up to the table, look at it, see that it was dirty, then go choose a different table. Then people would come up and they would like try to brush at it a little bit, but it was a little bit too much for people to just wipe off with their hands because it's like sticky. So, and then they would just walk off and do something else. Then people would come and they would get to the table and they grab the chair, they about to sit down, they would look at it, see how dirty it was, know that they couldn't clean it up, and then they would just walk away. And I was sitting at that Starbucks for like a good 3 hours. Nobody ever sat down at that table until finally some dude, he had like a folder. He used his folder in his hand to wipe it up. He had a suit on and everything, and he wiped it up with his hand and finally sat down right before I left. But for 3 hours, I watched at least 10 people walk by that table and not even try to sit down at it just because it was so dirty. Now, me personally, if I come to a Starbucks, and I do this almost every time I come to a Starbucks because the tables be dirty, not because there's something wrong with Starbucks, because people just leave the table dirty because they know it's not theirs and they know it's not their job to clean it up. So they just leave it there dirty and let Starbucks clean it up, or the next person clean it up. When I show up to a Starbucks, if the table's dirty, I go up to the counter to the barista and be like, yo, can somebody come clean off this table right here? Because I mean, they work there, that's their job to keep the tables clean. So I'll go ask them to clean it off, they clean it off, and everything's happily ever after. But the reason I'm telling you about this in the daily game, I'm gonna go right into the 3 points so you understand why I'm talking about this. Number one, the way that people deal with little things in life is a microcosm of the way that they'll deal with the big things and the way that they basically live their entire lives. I'm telling you that to say, with this Starbucks story, most people see some little inconvenience in their life or something that's not the way that they would want it to be ideally, but instead of doing something about it, taking some action to actually get it the way that they want it, most people just accept it. Because I watched 10 people walk by who I could tell by their actions that they wanted to sit down at that table, but when they saw that it was dirty and they knew they couldn't clean it off with their hands, they just decided, you know what, I'm not even going to deal with it, let me go find a different table. When any one of them could have easily just walked into the Starbucks, walked up to the counter, because it's not a big Starbucks, walk up to the counter and be like, yo, I want to sit at this table out here, it's dirty, can somebody come clean it off? And the funny thing is, I had asked someone to clean off the table that I was sitting at, and she came out with these, like, you know, the little wipes that you pull out of the package, and she wiped off the table and it was perfectly clean. All somebody had to do was come ask that, and the dude who sat down didn't even do that. He wiped it with his little folder. Now his folder's dirty, his hand is dirty, and the table still wasn't all the way clean, but he was just like, I guess he was just like, forget it, I'm just sitting down regardless of what the situation is. So people, the way people deal with little things will tell you how they deal with the big things, and the fact that 10 people walked by and wouldn't do something about this little thing until one person came along and did something about it tells you a lot about human beings. Number two, when you're in a place of business, the service that we get in businesses oftentimes is just good enough, right? When you go to a restaurant or a Starbucks or anywhere that you're receiving some form of service, you get service at any business you go to, usually the service is just good enough. It's not excellent, it's not exceptional, and sometimes there are things about that service that we would want to be better, but we don't enact our power to do something about it. We don't say anything, we don't demand that we get better service, we don't tell them later like, yo, y'all could have did this a little bit better. These new sites that came out like Yelp and things like that, and Facebook, I guess, allow people to kind of say what they feel after the fact, but why not say something in the moment? If it's not set up the way that you want it, get things the way that you want them to be. You go to a restaurant, you don't let them just give you whatever food they want to give you. You make them give you the food that you ordered off the menu. If you get a car, you choose the car that you want based on your situation at that time. When you get into a relationship, you choose the person you want to be in a relationship with. You don't let some random lottery just say, all right, this is going to be your husband, or this is going to be your boyfriend, or these are going to be your kids. You choose who you want. So in business, when you go into a place of business as a customer, remember, you're paying them. You're their boss because you're the one spending the money. Get things the way that you want it, or the way that they say that they're supposed to give it to you. If it's not like that, make sure you get what you want. Number three, I tell people all the time in life that 99% of what happens to us in life, we don't control. I don't control what none of the people out here is going to do. I don't control the weather. I don't control what it's going to be like tomorrow. Next time I get in my car, I don't control the other people on the road. Next time I get on a plane, I don't control if that plane is even going to make it to its destination or if I'm going to make it back to where I originally came from. 99% of life, we do not control. And we don't control anything outside of just ourselves. And ourselves are very small in the wide scheme of all of the world, even just the earth, even just the country or just the city that you're in. However, that 1% which we do control is a lot larger than most people ever realize that it is, because that 1% that we do control, most people only apply about 1% of that 1% when it comes to controlling what they can do in life. They allow things to just be as they are, even when they're not ideal. Don't say something when something isn't the way they want it to be, and generally live a very small life because they never even explore the possibilities available to them within that 1%. That 1% may seem like is a little number, 1% compared to 99%, but that 1% is a wide mass range of possibilities that we have for ourselves if we would have the heart to explore it and do something with it, and maybe do something about the things that we don't have set up ideally in our lives. That's your Daily Game. My name's Dre Baldwin. Y'all know what it is. Subscribe to the Daily Game email. You can get it by going to dreallday.com/game. Make sure you click the link to read the post that is associated to this video. Everybody work on your game. dreallday.com.